Hello, my name is Dorian, and I just want to get out some thoughts about um, Ant-Man Quantumania, which I just got back from. Um, yep, I just wanted to kind of process what the hell I just saw. So, um, spoilers, all the spoilers. Um, but general thoughts. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But I kind of had some fun. Fun was had. Um, I think that the original MCU, the Infinity Saga MCU, didn't really have any misses. I think everything was pretty solid quality. You weren't necessarily going to love every single film, but you were going to have a good time. It was going to continue the saga and be a good movie. And so they were all solid stuff. And after Endgame, I give Disney, Marvel a lot of props because they were hit with a pandemic, which I'm sure threw monkey wrenches into their plans, and they probably had to restructure a whole bunch of things. And where do you go from here? And everything like that. And there were some good things that came out of Phase 4. WandaVision and the Loki TV show, especially, in my humble opinion. Um, and then I think there were plenty of things that were fine, like Shang-Chi was fine in and of itself. If you didn't think, for me, if you didn't think about, well, how does this fit in with the larger story, but just isolated in amongst itself, I think it feels like a Phase 1 kind of movie. But Black Widow, I think, was like a perfectly good movie. I feel like the Black Widow movie, if it had come out chronologically, if it had come out at the time where it would have fit chronologically, it would have made more sense, because I think, as like a lot of people say, like, well, we all know that Black Widow's gonna die, so how can you how can you be invested in the character? But it was a decent enough movie. I know a lot of people were disappointed with the Taskmaster. I didn't have I didn't know about that character from the comics. I'm not that deep into knowledge about the comics to have been disappointed through expectations of thinking that the Taskmaster was going to be something else, but I just thought it was an underwhelming character. I mean, the Black Widow movie wasn't perfect, but it was decent. And Eternals, it's like, there were things I liked about Eternals. I think, like, the cinematography and some of the cosmic concepts and things. But like a lot of people were saying that it would have been better as a TV show. I think it was too many characters in the movie and too much going on, and you barely even get introduced to the characters to even figure out who they all are. And if you had done it as a TV show or something, you had time. But anyway, I didn't hate Eternals, but it was underwhelming, and I think more disappointing the more I thought about it. And I personally wasn't that into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And Hawkeye, I didn't like Hawkeye, I think, as much as some other people. It was okay, but I just couldn't get into Kate Bishop. I didn't like her. But I liked Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye and Echo just fine. And then I liked What If, although some of the episodes were like a little hit or miss. And then at one point I was dedicated to watching every single MCU thing, and then at some point I stopped with that, and I didn't watch I couldn't finish Moon Knight. There was a lot I liked about Moon Knight, but then it hit a nerve with me, and I wasn't compelled enough to finish it. But there was a lot I liked about it. I mean, the composer is amazing, is excellent. The Egyptian Golden Parade composer, really great. Hold on a sec. I hope I'm gonna mispronounce this, but Hesham Nazi, great composer. But there were some things I liked about Moon Knight, but I couldn't finish it. And then Spider-Man No Way Home was great. I don't know if I can. I know it's Phase 4, but I don't know if I think of it like I think of the other Phase 4 movies, because I think of Spider-Man No Way Home is more of a capstone experience like Endgame. That it is a finale to decades of stories, so it's not like the other Phase 4 pieces. And also, I guess it's a Sony picture, so Marvel doesn't... I don't know, but it's sort of an MCU movie. I just don't know if it's a Phase 4... Well, anyway. Spider-Man No Way Home had that Marvel MCU feel where everyone's buzzing and you come out of the theater just having that theatrical experience, which is really great. But MCU was a bit of a roller coaster, and then I did not watch Ms. Marvel, which I hear good things about, but I also hear that a lot of other people didn't watch it, probably because, like me, it's either A, you hear it skews younger, and B, you're just so burnt out and disappointed with the MCU at this point that you're like, I'm not going to watch another TV show. And then there was She-Hulk, and it got mixed reviews. Some people really liked it, some people really hated it, a bunch of in between. I watched, like an episode to try to get into it and couldn't, and then I just skipped to the end and I watched the finale episode so that I could just... I didn't mind spoiling it for myself. I just wanted to see the finale. And, I like some of the fourth wall things, but it just, I don't know, it was too kind of jokey for me. Like, I liked the actress. I could see that she was an interesting actress, but I guess the concept of that show or the tone of the show was just a miss for me. But I didn't give it a true honest chance because I didn't really try to really watch it. And then I watched the cartoon Baby Groot, like little shorts, the animated shorts, but they weren't, again, I thought these were going to be stories with like Guardians of the Galaxy or something, like side stories, and it really wasn't. They were just little shorts that almost felt more like Looney Tunes. It was just like Baby Groot, silent, not silent, but like almost no dialogue, just kind of doing like a really cartoonish bit. And it was more fluff, whereas, when you see Groot in the Guardian movies, like, there's substance there, there's heart. It's not just like a one-dimensional cartoon character doing silly cartoon things. Well, I mean, it's all silly, it's fun, but I don't know, I felt like the Baby Groot sketches were cute, but they didn't really, like, it was more for a younger audience or something. I don't know. Anyway, so at this point I'm getting really burnt out by the MCU, and then, have I mentioned every single Phase 4 up until Wakanda Forever? I know I'm probably forgetting some. But that's it. Oh, well, obviously, Multiverse of Madness, which was hyped and then was disappointing. But, everything with Elizabeth Olsen was great, was amazing. And then Thor Love and Thunder was really, I think, disappointing for me too. And I, ranted forever and forever about that one. But it really got me thinking. But just like the weird tone shifts, like you go right from a really serious scene with like dying of cancer and Natalie Portman's a great actress, and then right into a joke, and then right into serious, and nothing has time for you to like sit with the emotional impact of the scene. Yeah, and then, so I'm just kind of getting done with the MCU, and then of course, as an aside, you have Everything Everywhere All at Once come out that does the concept of the multiverse better, where the multiverse is used as metaphor and storytelling technique rather than just like a gimmick. And it was telling a complex concept in a way that you could kind of understand it. And just like a nod to this chaos that we're all in, and contemplating it. And then you have Top Gun Maverick coming out, just kind of giving the big middle finger to CGI and showing how you can tell good stories with good writing and good script and good acting, but also just when it comes to visual effects, you don't have to do CGI. You can do practical, and how refreshing and great it is to see the beauty of actual real scenes and like practical filming and not CGI everything. And so after that, it kind of, makes me want to take a long break from CGI. So I obviously wasn't in a mood for Avatar, to come out right when it did. Just be like, no more CGI, no more CGI. So with all of that going in as my prelude to Ant-Man Quantumania, I know it's going to be a CGI fest, and you have to like that and be up for that and be into that, because that's 80% of what it is. But I do like bright and colorful and fun, and I kind of was going into this movie with pretty low expectations. Yeah, except, going into it mostly to see Kang the Conqueror, to see Jonathan Majors. I mostly went to see Jonathan Majors because I was just, blown over by his performance in Loki. And that's the main reason why I was going, and because I felt that this movie was built up to be a bigger component of the MCU, to really introduce us to Kang, so a pivotal one to see. Before getting into that, I did skip Wakanda Forever for now. I will probably see it, but I just didn't want to see it at the moment, because I felt that like that Black Panther was about like black excellence and black joy, and I have no right to speak on these things, but like greatness and positivity and positive vibes, and like what would it be like if a country wasn't subjected to colonialism, and showing good leadership and good role models, and just amazing, awesome, like how great is Wakanda and everything. And then with the sequel, after all that positivity, that the sequel is just going to be about grief and black trauma and death and sadness, and exploiting, whether incidentally or on purpose, but exploiting the real death of Chadwick Boseman to get an emotional response in a film, in a way, and like not recasting the character, and keeping the character of T'Challa relevant, and so on. It's like I just can't. I don't know. It's just Wakanda Forever's got to wait for a while. I'm just not in the mood to watch a movie about grief, although I'm sure it's well made. I mean, Angela Bassett's starring in it. I mean, I'm sure there's amazing acting performances and everything. I just wasn't really in a mood to see, more grief at the moment. But anyway, okay, setting all that aside, about 15 minutes in, getting to my thoughts on Quantumania. So, mostly a CGI fest, CGI visual fest, but but I didn't hate it, like I said. It is a lot different in tone and feel, I think, than the other two Ant-Man films, such to the point that I don't know if it would work as like a trilogy if you just watched Ant-Man 1, Ant-Man 2, and then this movie, and that's it, without watching anything else. Because I felt like this one, to me, had more of a vibe of the Avengers, maybe, in a way, rather than like an Ant-Man movie vibe. Because the other two Ant-Man movies were more heist and more kind of upbeat and silly, and heist movies and kind of detective theme and everything, and like more smaller scale. This one felt like more epic. But again, that's also why I'm going to see it too, is that this is going to be like our introduction to the quantum universe. And so, I don't know, I kind of liked it. I think it had some interesting concepts I think it is trying to marry those two things of giant, epic, huge villain and small scale, literally and figuratively, like lower tier superhero, and like kind of comedic tone, and how to mesh these two things together, and where it can work, where it did work, where it doesn't work. Yeah, like the way the movie's framed, like at the beginning and at the end, there's these little like comedic bits that almost feel sitcom-y, and it either works for you or doesn't, I guess. It's just like tone shifts from some of the more epic laser battle things. But I think it's very interesting. I think that I liked the idea of, okay, if you're Ant-Man, and then all of a sudden you and you alone have to face, like Thanos or something, somebody who's completely out of your league. You don't know what's going on. You know that you're not one of the top tier heroes, and you're humble enough about it, but what do you do? What do you do when you're up against that kind of thing? And what do you do when you are overwhelmed like that? And all the spoilers. My favorite, I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie was when there's a whole bunch of Scott Langs all together. And I was thinking, how is an ant going to face, say, a human, like a villain, somebody immensely, inconceivably larger scale than them, better technology, better everything, a zillion times their size. How an ant poses no threat to the human. But one of the things that we find interesting about ants is how they, as a group, all work together, to build structures, to have organization, to have a community. And that's where their strength lies. And that's how they can, take on bigger challenges than any one singular ant could do. That's one way that ants are amazing. And they kind of reflected that, I thought, at a big point in the movie, where there's a bunch of Scott Langs, and so like ants, they all have to come together to build a giant ant mound. And so I thought that was a fun, silly, interesting, and ant-worthy way of combating, the villain in that scenario. And I thought it was funny and silly and clever, and it made a kind of sense in a way where nothing makes sense. So that was good. And there was a bunch to enjoy about it, I thought. I overthink things, so I'm thinking things like Scott's daughter Cassie, like her version of her Ant-Man outfit looked almost identical in uniform to Kate Bishop's outfit in Hawkeye, and I'm just thinking, okay, but when you make your next new Avengers thing and you have Cassie Lang and Kate Bishop next to each other, aren't their uniforms are going to be too similar. I don't know why I was thinking. I was also thinking that a lot of this next generation crew, I either maybe don't so much like their personalities, like I just didn't like Kate Bishop, or like their personalities seem kind of bland to me, like Cassie Lang. We don't really know much about Cassie Lang. I don't think she really stands out as a like fleshed out character yet. Or same thing with like America Chavez. Like she's I think she's more fun than Cassie Lang, but still we know so very little about these characters that they almost just exist to be like, here's a, what age are they supposed to be? 15? Here's a tween female child who's good at science, probably. Magic science magic, probably. But we don't, there's no other defining characteristics to the character. Like, who is this person? They just seem so generic, I guess, to some degree, especially Cassie Lang. And she's a main character, so I wish they'd given her a little bit more unique personality. I don't know. But again, like, I feel like a lot of thought was put into the plot, because like when we kind of see her character and she's like, oh, she's into science like everybody else, does a science thing, is a science prodigy, okay. But hers at least kind of made sense. Like, her dad went missing, so what does she invent? She invents some kind of GPS to, like, track him should that happen again. So it kind of makes sense that, she would spend her childhood inventing that. But yeah, I'm just obviously getting off center from, I don't know where I'm going with anything. I'm just meandering thoughts about the movie. So, like, highlights was, like, I liked the anthill scene. I liked everything with Kang. I liked everything with Jonathan Majors. I liked, and just scenes with just Michelle Pfeiffer and Jonathan Majors. And I did want more backstory into Janet Van Dyne and, Michelle Pfeiffer's character. And I didn't really quite get maybe fully what I wanted, but you get inferences where you can fill in the pieces. But you just think, oh, wouldn't it have been cool to see Michelle Pfeiffer, Janet Van Dyne as a freedom fighter? But you don't see it. You just get inferences of what her life was like there. But also, like, okay, Janet Van Dyne, you're trapped in Quantumania land for 30 years. You wanted to get some strange, and you had the choice between Bill Murray and Jonathan Majors, and you chose Bill Murray? You chose Bill Murray. Like, why didn't you choose Jonathan? Well, I guess we know why she didn't choose, Kang, but still. Bill Murray? Bill Murray makes a cameo. And I just was like, I mean, okay, we don't know if the allegations against him are true or not, or as of me saying this now, I don't know, but, it's hard to look at him now, I think, sometimes and think, oh yeah, that's a kind person. And he seems like a jackass. He seems like a jerk, and he seems like someone who's a bit misogynistic and just like, I don't know. Maybe he used to be like a lovable rogue, but roguish, but a dick, a jackass that you liked to, who was kind of soft around the edges. But sometimes, a jackass is just a jackass too. Like, I don't know, it's just like the entire time that Bill Murray's character was on screen, I thought, and he wasn't on screen long, I felt he was making, vaguely sexual kind of passes at Michelle Pfeiffer the whole time. Or, like, that was the majority of his dialogue. And Michelle Pfeiffer's trying to be like, yeah. Like, how is she, I don't know. Like, it just felt weird. It felt kind of cringy to me. I don't know. I didn't. But again, his character, it was a cameo and then it was over kind of thing. I think it was just there to be weird, to be a cameo. And I don't much care too much about it because I don't think he was set up to be any long-term part of the MCU, just to make a cameo, get in, get out kind of thing. But anyway, So there were some good highlights to the movie. I think that it opened with a lot of like laser battle CGI stuff where I'm not emotionally invested in it because I don't really care about what's going on. And then you have what appears to be this indigenous civilization there that Kang has conquered, and they are fighting this decades-long resistance to get their freedom back from him somewhat, and then they couldn't get their freedom themselves. It took hearing a 5-minute pep speech from a teenage girl who comes from another land who doesn't know what's going on, but she just goes, gung-ho, and now it turns the tide of battle. Like, that seemed a little odd. Like they should have just led their own revolution without having to have, like, the Lang family come in to stand for them, I think. But again, Janet Van Dyne, her story was interesting. Hope Van Dyne, Evangeline Lilly, her character gets shrifted. But it is what it is. I mean, if you have so many characters on screen, you have to pick who's going to be more central to the story. And we already figured it was going to be, Janet Van Dyne and Kang, and Scott Lang as the focus of the story, which I felt it kind of should be. It does kind of relegate Cassie Lang to being damsel in distress a bit, and it pushes kind of Hope off to the side, but they allow her to kind of get the last punch in. And they basically just say, like, Hope's awesome, Hope's great, so we don't need to talk about Hope because we all know Hope is awesome. I mean, they're not saying anything bad about her character, but they haven't really given her character an arc. And then Michael Douglas is there, and he doesn't really save the day so much as he looks really cool in this brown duster that he walks up in the end. But his earpiece is pivotal to the movie. But yeah, it's a silly movie. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. The thing I've been thinking about that mostly is MODOK. I can't unsee that. I really wish that the character of MODOK just didn't exist in this movie. Again, I'm not that enough knowledgeable of the comics to really know who that character is or have appreciation for that character. I know vaguely of the character. I've seen images and the name, and so I would be able to know, prior to seeing this movie, that there was a character named MODOK with some reasonable expectations of what that character would look like, and be like, okay, this is a very bizarre looking character as is. But, and I imagine this is a character that real fans of the comics want to see a lot, and so maybe it would play a lot differently to MODOK fans out there than to me, who almost coming in, pretend I don't even know who MODOK is, but the ridiculousness is just over the top. And I could take when the mask was down. When you see the movie, you'll see what I mean. When the gold mask is down, but when the mask comes up, it's like, oh, put it away, I can't unsee that. And I think that that's the joke, that it's supposed to look kind of disturbing, that it's supposed to look like the worst Photoshop you've ever seen, that's the joke. I just don't know if that was a successful joke. I wonder if that was just more of a yeesh moment rather than something actually enjoyable to people. And every time that thing came on screen, I was like, make it stop, make it go away. I do not want to look at this. I do not want to see this thing. It's wrecking my eyeballs. Take it away. Why is this even in the movie? I know why it's in the movie. I think it's in the movie to give the kid something to kick, because you can't send a child, a teenager, up against the big, big bad, and you want the teenager to feel empowered, so you have to give them, like, a side character villain to handle, who's not going to pose, a significant peril, to have them to have something to do, or for laughs or whatever. But you didn't need that character in this movie at all for any reason. But anyway, at the end of the day, I enjoyed the movie somewhat. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. It is 1,000% worth it to see every scene with Jonathan Majors, especially the scenes with Jonathan Majors and Michelle Pfeiffer. Just amazing, just great. It reminded me of Darth Vader in acting a villain who doesn't scream or yell and is able to be threatening just in this quiet, calm, menacing kind of way, and in this way that could be interpreted multiple ways. And you could, like, calm and calculating, but threatening, and it's an incredible performance, especially when I take into account the performance that I saw of He Who Remains, where you could see how He Who Remains and this Kang, you could see how they are variants of each other, of how they're very similar personalities, but one of them is kind of like the kind of better one, and one is using that for I don't want to say the good one and the bad one. It's much more nuanced. It's so sophisticated and so slick. It's just how Jonathan Majors played those two different versions, where I could totally see them being different variants of the same person on different levels of a morality scale. It was just so cool. And then, not even getting into, the end credits yet. But just, so that was really cool. So overall I did like it. I did really like, our little underdog Ant-Man going up against, our introduction to Kang, and especially, that anthill scene. I thought it was fun. And the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm having positive thoughts, as opposed to, some of the other Phase 4 movies where, the more I thought about it, the less I liked it. But it's not stellar, but it's okay. I would say I definitely enjoyed it a lot, but I thought it made a lot more sense than Thor Ragnarok, or Thor Love and Thunder. Where I thought Thor Love and Thunder was a complete kind of train wreck of the just jarring tonal shifts and all over the place. I thought that this was definitely better than Thor Love and Thunder. It did have a plot. It did kind of have different acts. It did kind of resolve. It was perfectly fine for early to mid series movie. It's not gonna be Avengers or Infinity War, but it's a perfectly serviceable film. I almost think it was too short. I think it could have done with less pew pew, random crazy CGI laser battles, and more exposition, actually, to just tell me what the fuck is going on. Because you're what? I don't understand. What is happening? Who are these people? What's going on? And then again, some of the jokey jokes, I don't know if they landed very well. There's this one joke with holes that I'm please stop. And then it comes around again, and I'm I don't even think that was funny the first time, but why did you have a second hole joke at the end? I don't think this is funny. And there were people in the theater with me, and I don't think there were a lot of chuckles or anything. There were a couple of lines though that got some audience reactions. I think people would be like, "This is okay." I saw it, like kind of front row center, IMAX 3D. I would recommend it for like IMAX, to people who are into that kind of thing, because it is visually fun with a lot of colors and weird, other dimension, foreign fantasy landscape stuff going on. So I did enjoy that I saw it in the IMAX, but I actually don't think the 3D added anything. And I'm one of those rare people who's actually a fan of the 3D, and I like doing 3D usually if it's available. But I don't know if the 3D really added anything for me. If anything, it might have detracted a bit, because some things are, when you see the 3D, some things are always going to be out of focus and more in focus, and your peripheral vision is kind of off. And so I don't know. I just the 3D didn't kind of immerse me in very well. I didn't feel like it was a worthy thing that would be worthwhile to see in 3D. But IMAX 2D I think would be perfectly fine. But anyway, it was fun. It was maybe 7 out of 10. I wish Modak wasn't in it. I can't unsee that atrocity to my eyeballs. I did generally like the story, and I thought an interesting story was told, and I really, really love the introduction to Kang, and I think that will be awesome going forward. And then the end credits, before even the end credits, when they just do that art that goes over the very first part of the credits where they do the cast name, I liked that background art. I thought that was nifty, and I kind of maybe would have wanted to see more of that art elsewhere. But I thought that was nifty art. And then the first end credit scene was that scene of all the Kangs, and they had a nod to the Egyptian Kang. And I don't know who all the Kangs are, but I know that Kang had a thing and was a pharaoh for a while, so I recognized that, I knew that was one of the Kangs. And then they showed that scene of what is it, the Council of Kangs, so that was really cool, and just so cool to see even glimpses of Jonathan Majors getting to play all these different versions. That's just got to be so fun. And so I'm totally down for all Kang all day, Kang buffet. And then of course then the second end credit scene, really excited me, because it showed me my favorite character. Again, it was a really exciting end credit teaser, the second one especially too, for me. Both of them I thought were nice, but it's almost you don't really want to judge the movie on how fun the end credits are, because we all know that Marvel is very good at making fun end credits, but the end credits, they're just the teasers for something else. They're, so I don't know if they're not really a part of the movie that you're actually watching, unless sometimes some of the MCU movies, the end credits are a little epilogue to what you just saw and relevant to what you just saw, and it makes sense. But most of the time, they don't have any you could clip them out. They're just commercials for the next product down the line or something. So, but or they're Easter egg references to characters that nobody cares about, like Arrows, really Arrow. But anyway, but no, these two end credits were fun. I wouldn't say that they were way more hype than the movie itself. I think they were just enough of a hype without being massive, end credit hype. I don't know. I guess that's about it. I was pretty excited to see. Well, again, since I said all the spoilers, pretty excited to see Loki and Mobius. So. Now I wonder if that's just a trailer for Loki season 3, but I'm really curious how Loki and Mobius are going to fold into our stories now. And at least there's some tie-in now, because I was waiting and waiting to see where the Loki TV show was going to tie in at all. It's also like, well, what brought Kang into existence? Was it Sylvie did it? Sylvie did it by killing He Who Remains? Was it Peter Parker and Doctor Strange who did it by casting that forgetting spell? Because that also seemed to cause a rift. Was it actually Janet Van Dyne's fault or the Lang family's fault for, maybe it's all simultaneous. Maybe simultaneously, while Sylvie is killing He Who Remains, Peter Parker is also, having the forgetting spell, and the Lang family are in the quantum realm, messing things up with the Kang person who lives in the quantum realm. They're like, which thing is letting Kang free, or are they all happening simultaneously, or what led to what led to what? Like, I feel like we all blame Sylvie for this. Sylvie started it, the Peter Parker thing. It was just a coincidence the rift was happening while that spell was going, or what allowed the Peter Parker thing to go. But see, it's not explained, but anyway. Oh, and I guess that's another thought with Quantumania, is that I guess I would have been okay with it if they did it one time, but they did it several times with these soliloquies with Scott Lang, where he's basically sort of looking at the camera saying, like, I know this is all silly, I know none of it makes sense, I have a million questions, don't think about it, just enjoy. And it's like, we get it. The MCU, they probably wrote themselves all in knots, and they no longer know how to hold on to the fans, and the fans have all these questions. And rather than trying to explain it or retcon it or give a better explanation of how the multiverse is created, and what's the whatever's going, what's the timeline of events, they're basically saying, we know this is silly, we know this is crazy, we know none of this makes sense, we know we have a million questions, you just gotta roll with it, just roll with it, which in the end is all what we all should be doing anyway, just rolling with it. But I didn't like how Scott Lang said that multiple times throughout the movie. If he had said it once at the beginning, okay, fine. It's basically like, it's Shakespearean, really, in the beginning of, what was it, Midsummer Night's Dream? Isn't it Puck who's saying, like, hey, if anybody gets upset or offended here or whatever, don't worry about it, just enjoy, it's just a dream, it's just a fantasy, it's all fine. Now proceed to watch the thing you're about to watch. So, if Scott Lang had just done it once in the beginning, okay, what you're about to see will make no sense, just roll with it, just have fun, just laugh, we're just all here for fun. But he did it again a couple of times, and then again at the end, and it was the one at the end that I felt jarring to me. It was like, it kind of felt like it was on a good closing note for me, and then it went into that Scott Lang soliloquy thing that kind of was I felt it was a bit of a tone shift, and then it felt like an unsatisfying ending to me, like it kind of, like we had this whole story and it had an end, and then after the end you had to tack on an epilogue where Scott Lang is just kind of like, so, cut to black. And you're like, what? Like, I wouldn't have put that last, that felt like a weird way to end it, because then it didn't feel like a conclusive ending. It felt like it ended on a meh moment. And then end credits, where it's trying to get your hype back up. You're just like, wait, that was the ending? Wait, that was how you ended it? So it's a little confusing of a movie. But I think it has its charms, I guess is what I'm going to go with. So yeah. Am I looking forward to anything else from the MCU next? Loki Season 3, and anything with Kang in it. Um, I don't know. Oh, I am interested in like the Agatha Harkness spin-off thing I've heard that they're gonna have. I know that like Wanda's character is sort of all over the place now, but WandaVision, like, I'm still very interested in the character of Wanda and Elizabeth Olsen and stuff, so I'd be interested there. Um, I'm not really interested in Ironheart at the moment, or I know that everyone's kind of talking about Secret Wars and Skrull Invasion and all this stuff, but I don't we don't have enough to go on yet. I think in the MCU, there's only bits and pieces. You have a little bit of Skrull here and a little bit of Skrull here and a little bit of Monica Rambeau over here, but then there's all these other things that have nothing to do with that at all, and then Shang-Chi has nothing to do with anything, and so like I don't know, I feel like the MCU right now is just a bunch of loose ends, rather than a bunch of introductions. But I think hopefully this Kang arc will set the stage for a good beginning of a new arc, like the Kang arc or something. In any case, if nothing else, I want to go see what other movies Jonathan Majors is in and watch the hell out of those. So, yeah, I guess that's about my take, for now. Alrighty. Okay, bye.